I think the greatest danger is we all know people who criticize everyone and everything, including their kids.
Hi, Suzanne. Welcome back to the fourth session of the Sife Talk. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? Great to see you again.
Likewise. It's always so nice to see you and to have conversation with you, because just as I mentioned in the previous session, I really learn a lot from you. And this is more like a blessing for me that I'm having this interview with you, and I'm the source of taking your thoughts to the people.
Wonderful. Well, you're such a great interviewer. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here with you in this space.
Pleasure is all mine. Okay, so moving on to the topic today. The topic is how to handle criticism. Now, when it comes to criticism, the first part is when we fail, and sometimes we don't even fail. We succeed in our life. We do something really good. Still, we experience the criticism. People are pointing the fingers at us that we could have done it better. We could have done it from other perspective. So it's always about the people opinion from different perspective that you bear, and it's different than what you have done, what you think about a situation. We consider that's the criticism. How do you see the situation?
Well, criticism is also incredibly important. I mean, and I think the more success one has in life, the more important criticism is. It's very hard to get people to offer thoughtful critique. And particularly if you get to a particular point in your life, you would rather have it come to you than behind your back. And I would say as well that I actively seek criticism. To my mind, it's especially important because one is only human, right? You can only do all the important work that you are supposed to do, and you really need the help of friends and foes and the world at large to shape your arguments and to shape your work into the strongest place that they can be. I sometimes will put out very controversial things on social media and then tag people I know who are going to be really opposed to come in and discuss it so I can discuss it with them. And that serves a couple of purposes. One, it gets them involved and gets them to be part of the process so they feel their voices are heard. And two, I can listen very carefully to what those criticisms are and then either appropriate them to build my argument to make it stronger, or to find the strongest ways to push back and say, but we've got a whole different set of evidence. That, you know, if we can get criticism on a regular, I don't want to say daily, but on a regular basis for things that matter, one is a much stronger person and one's work is far better received. I mean, look at those companies that succeed. They have a means of bringing in a complexity of different kinds of engagements and responses. I think the toughest part is when there's kind of a brutal attack, a brutal critique on one, you know, a group of people for whatever reasons, and how does one address that? And I would say many of us in life have had that kind of experience. I know I have. And again, as with failure, the worst thing you can do is to kind of eat it, to not do anything about it, to just let it sit and rest and kind of destroy one from the inside out. And there are a couple things one can do that I think are really important. One is to acknowledge it. Let one's friends know, let others know, whether on whatever forum. I mean, one has to be really careful, and I'll explain this in a minute, but I think putting it out there that this has happened, everybody will see, everybody will know, and you know, your friends will come around, and it will make things more uncomfortable, even for those who have undertaken the attack. And then one has to decide, and I think this is the most important thing, do you want this critique, this kind of, in some cases, devastating critique, to be something that is going to define your career, your life? And to stick with that as kind of the one and only track you're going to focus on? Or do you want to put it to bed, find a way to do that. In one case, I wrote a short essay to say why this particular, it was a set of scholars, one book that had attacked me, and I said why the criticism was incorrect. And I had probably 20 people read it from various fields. So it came across as moderate, as thoughtful. I put it out there. It's probably one of the things I've written that has more people have read it, right? And as a result of that, because in some of these websites, you can track who is reading what. And the upshot of that was, I was doing work in Nigeria, and one of the major Nigerian newspapers published something. We've got 2 points of view on this, and put them out there as equal. And then one of my book, the other book, was discussed at the court. And was debated at court, and then lo and behold, out of that attack, I got a chieftaincy. So I was honored for that research. So you just never know where it will come, and it's incredible. I will say it's like having a bucket of ice water thrown on one. It's so hard, and I don't want to suggest it's not difficult. It's incredibly difficult, but finding ways to respond thoughtfully, and then to move on and to do one's own work and to get that work out there. So it's not going to be the limiting factor, the limiting factor in your life.
Great. So the gist of your answer is also my next question. Sometimes it happens when people are really criticizing you, when most of the people are criticizing you, that's the situation when you find it out that you are on the right track.
Right.
Is that true? For instance, if we talk about Jeff Bezos, if we talk about any successful person in the world, whenever they initiated something, so most of the people were not doing that task earlier. When Amazon was started, it was not very common that people were having the online network just like today, after 25 years of the online era, might be. And same as when the Facebook was started, it's not like everybody was using Facebook or everybody was creating an application like a Facebook. So they must have faced some sort of criticism. So when people are opposing you, is it the real time when you are going on the right direction, or is it most of the time? How do you see that?
I'm deep thinking, as you can hear from my size. I think there's some attacks that are simply leveled because of where one is. There's a funny story, which is true, and I know this for both students and faculty at Harvard. When I was offered this position, there were some people who had never contacted me, who all of a sudden contacted me. And there were many others that I thought I was close to that no longer were interested in communicating with me. It's that kind of thing. And so sometimes by the mere fact of one's position, and the luck of the draw. I mean, it was, I was deeply fortunate to get here, in spite of the fact that there are lots of very smart, very productive people. Just my time had come. But I think you have those kinds of aspects. As I'm listening to what you just said, and it was so wonderfully put, I think visually. A lot of the time. I'm an art historian, so that's not surprising, but I'm imagining kind of a boiling water, right? And you've got various plastic, animals and various things that are in this. And I think that I can see Bezos, and I can see many of the others in that position of the plastic animals, in this boiling stew, and staying well beneath the surface and floating around as others are trying to reach the top, and they're just looking around and finding and pulling from the resources that are there. I think the real problem is when one gets to the top and one listens to all the yes sayers and doesn't begin to think about how one can continue to grow and expand and use the position one is in to bring benefits, not just financial benefits to oneself and to the people who have invested in the company, but to the world more generally. And I think that that is where ultimately I see a lot of this real success lying. And then I think that also helps one to address the criticism and other issues, because people are looking at you as not just somebody who's founded a company that is somehow too expensive, or the products aren't working exactly as one wants, but as somebody who's deeply committed to transformative impacts through that particular invention or through that company, but also in other walks of life.
Great. So when it comes to the criticism, we always call it that it could be constructive, it could be destructive. So how one person can understand that, is it really the constructive one or the destructive one?
Well, I would say all criticism comes in the same. It takes a while for one to be able to separate it out. A great skill that I have learned is it's a lot of the criticism in my life comes through writing, right? People either in social media or in reviews or whatever, I write it out verbatim on a separate sheet of paper. And then on that separate sheet of paper, so now it's in my words. It's no longer that person. I own that sheet of paper. I typed it out. As I'm typing, I have great music on or whatever. I'm just being a secretary and writing it all out. And then I'll respond to it on that sheet of paper, sort of in a different font or a different color. So it allows me to breathe. Right. When this criticism comes in, as I said, it's like an ice bath. You cannot breathe. You can't do anything with it. You can't even discern if it's real or not real. But there's a kind of threat to one's existence that is coming in. And so finding a way to separate it out. And I find that a good way. And I may never return to it again. I may do nothing with it, or I may use that as a basis for thinking about kind of a strategy going forward. I think the other thing that's really important is to learn from this the power of criticism. I think the greatest danger is we all know people who criticize everyone and everything, including their kids, right? And I think that, we all grow through criticism, but you have to balance that with pick your battles, pick what the real issues are, use some humor. I mean, my daughter's now 30. I grounded her for life at least 6 times when she was at home as a joke. I mean, she knew it, but that was me saying, this is so off base. But I'm not going to critique you for absolutely everything. I just want you to begin to think about this, because you're going to be an adult and you're going to have to make these decisions. And so we'll laugh about it. But I think picking your moments and making sure you're not one of those people who is taking the criticism you're getting and kind of like these dogs that howl outside. When another dog howls, you don't become simply one of those that's responding to and ricocheting whatever is coming to you onto others, and in essence making your pain the pain of everyone and making things worse for them. And of course then you have to engage in them again, so you're just in a perpetual cycle. And it's alienating, and it's traumatizing in ways that it shouldn't be.
So what you are saying is that every criticism that you get are leading you toward the 2 roads. Number 1, you can make your way. Or number 2, with those criticisms, you can just simply create the hurdle, the boundary for you. And of course, we always have to find out the way. And the best thing that I got from you was to take all the criticism and then apply it on the self-evaluation and self-improvement. That these are the things we have to work on, because people are talking about this perspective. Well, Suzanne, you want to say something? Otherwise, I was
just going to say, I don't frame that as self criticism, self-improvement. I just put it down as facts, and I let it sit there, and it decides. I decide, but I don't know I'm deciding what it is, because even in using those terms like self-criticism and the like, one is evaluating it in a way that I think we actually are smarter than that, and I think that making it neutral makes it far easier to adjust to and engage it. And I think moving things like this to a neutral zone and ones that will, over time, it may not be today, it may be in a week or a month, as one is out walking and looking at the leaves on the trees and the wind, things come into one as one is reflecting on it over time.
Great. So it means it's not every time things have to be positive or negative. Things could be neutral. Things are things, not good,
Right.
not bad. Things are things. Good.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great perspective. Well, Suzanne, thank you so very much for this session. It was again lovely listening to you. Very informative, very productive, very engaging as always. You are really a person worth listening to. We will be sending you more email to have more discussions on more topics. That's what we are gonna do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you're my morning coffee. It's great to see you.
Yeah. Might be that's how the destination is taking us towards. Yeah. All right, Suzanne. Then till the next session, take care, stay blessed. Bye bye.